Snow drifted across the wide parking lot of Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport, settling like powdered glass on the rooflines and the long stretch of runway beyond. The early light hadn't yet warmed the windows. Everything, every steel beam, every pane of glass, held that pale winter blue tint unique to Montana mornings. Inside the terminal, the quiet was so complete that the soft click of Officer Liam Hartley's boots echoed as if the building itself were holding its breath. Beside him walked Coda, his K9 partner, a Belgian Malinois with a calm, almost meditative gait. On most days, their patrol began in silence, Coda listening, Liam thinking. Two souls who had learned to trust the quiet more than the noise. But this morning, something tugged the rhythm out of place. Coda paused, once, then again, lifting his head toward the entrance doors, as if the cold wind carried a whisper meant only for him. Liam stopped too. He wasn't a man who startled easily, but he knew the dog's instincts were sharper than any security scan, sharper than most people's judgment. "What is it, buddy?" he murmured, his voice low, steady, weathered by years of service and the kind of loss that never truly leaves a man. Coda didn't look back, his body aligned toward the sliding glass doors, where a small figure was approaching. A woman, young, bundled in a faded winter coat, pushed a stroller through the drifting snow. Even from a distance, Liam sensed something fragile about her. Not danger. Something else. Something like exhaustion. The deep, bone-level kind that comes from carrying too much alone. As she neared, the overhead heater blasted warm air toward the doorway, stirring loose flakes from her hood. Coda stiffened, ears rising, breath hitting the cold tiles like wisps of steam. Liam felt the shift immediately, like a silent alarm vibrating through the leash. Passengers moving through the security line glanced at the dog, then at the woman. Few stopped walking, but nearly all slowed. A strange hush was forming, thin, invisible, but unmistakable. A quiet heaviness, as if the air itself were turning to glass. The woman didn't seem to notice. Her hands gripped the stroller handle tightly, knuckles red from the cold. She moved like someone who had practiced walking while tired, efficient, deliberate, carrying her worries close. When she finally stepped inside, her eyes lifted for just a moment, enough for Liam to see the anxiety shadowing them, enough to make something tighten beneath his ribs. Coda took a single step forward. "Easy," Liam whispered. But Coda didn't ease. The dog inhaled sharply, sensing something Liam could not. A scent. A signal. Something unfamiliar. Wrong, even. The kind of wrong that doesn't announce itself with noise, but with absence. The absence of normal. Snow slid off the stroller's canopy, scattering across the polished floor. And then Liam felt it too. Not with scent or instinct, but with a quiet intuition carved by long years and long winters. A sense that the world, steady as it seemed moments ago, had just shifted, very slightly, off its axis. The heater hummed. A suitcase rolled somewhere behind him. A boarding announcement crackled overhead. But those ordinary sounds felt distant now, muffled, like they belonged to another place entirely. Here, in this one quiet corner of the airport, time gathered in a tight circle around a police dog, a weary mother, and a stroller that suddenly felt heavier than it should. Coda stepped forward again, and Liam exhaled slowly, knowing, without knowing how, that whatever was about to unfold had already begun. Emily Carter pushed through the sliding doors just as another gust of Montana wind swept in behind her. The cold clung to her coat, to the stroller's faded fabric, even to the few strands of hair escaping her knit beanie. She looked like someone who had been awake too long, carrying more than her small frame should bear. Yet she moved with that quiet determination all single mothers seem to learn, step by step, breath by breath, holding everything together because no one else would. Inside the terminal, the warm air fogged her glasses for a brief moment. She blinked behind them, trying to steady her breathing. It wasn't fear, at least not at first. It was exhaustion, the kind that seeps into the bones of someone who hasn't had a moment to herself in years. Her hands tightened around the stroller handles as she navigated past a cluster of travelers, comparing insurance plans and hunting for boarding passes. Then Coda reacted. The dog's sudden tension sent a wave through the space, subtle but unmistakable. His muscles coiled, breath sharpening, eyes locking onto Emily with a mix of urgency and instinctive concern. Liam felt the leash pull with a force he hadn't anticipated. "Coda," he warned softly, not pulling back yet, because something in the dog's posture told him not to. Emily hesitated mid-step when she noticed the police dog moving toward her. Her lips parted, a flicker of confusion crossing her features. She wasn't used to drawing attention. She wasn't prepared for the way people slowed, as if the dog's reaction had placed a spotlight directly on her. A businessman dragging a suitcase glanced over. A pair of college students paused mid-conversation. Someone lifted their phone, hoping to record something interesting. Emily swallowed hard. I didn't do anything," she whispered, mostly to herself. But Liam heard it anyway. He stepped forward, palms open and calm. "Ma'am, everything's okay. You're not in any trouble." His tone was gentle, years of experience softening every edge. But Coda's stance remained tense, ears forward, weight shifting with each breath, as if he were tasting the air for something wrong. Emily tried to smile, but it trembled at the edges. "I'm just here to catch a flight," she said, voice thin. "I'm not... There's nothing..." Coda moved again, not lunging, not aggressive. Just a precise, focused step toward the stroller. Emily instinctively pushed it back, boots squeaking on the polished floor. The wheel snagged on melted snow, making her grip the handle tighter. Her son didn't stir beneath the blanket, unaware of the tension twisting through the adults around him. "Coda, easy," Liam said again, placing a steadying hand on the dog's shoulder. But Coda barely acknowledged it. His nose lifted, nostrils flaring, pupils narrowing with unmistakable intensity. Liam met Emily's eyes, a soft blue clouded with fear. "Yes," but also deep weariness. A grief she tried to hide behind practiced composure. He'd seen that look before, on too many parents traveling alone, holding their world together with nothing but willpower and a diaper bag. "Can I ask where you're headed today?" Liam kept his voice steady, human. Empathy reached further than authority in moments like this. "Sacramento," Emily answered quietly. "I'm visiting my sister. She said she found a clinic that can help my son breathe better at night." Her eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. "It's been a long winter." Montana winters often carved loneliness into people, a slow erosion of hope. Liam knew that feeling too well. Before he could respond, a breeze rushed in as the doors behind her opened again, and whatever scent or signal that draft carried, it hit Coda instantly. He stepped forward, harder this time. Emily flinched, pressing the stroller protectively against her body. "Please, please make him stop." Liam raised both hands, trying to calm her, calm the dog, calm the cluster of onlookers whose curiosity had sharpened into that strange mix of fear and fascination airports often bred. "It's all right," Liam said softly. "No one's accusing you of anything. Let's just times 500 melms." But he didn't finish, because Coda's sudden stillness struck him like a warning siren only he could hear. The dog wasn't barking. He wasn't growling. He was listening. Listening to something Liam couldn't detect yet. Something quiet. Something wrong. Something that had just stepped into their morning without announcement. And in that breath of silence between all their heartbeats, Liam sensed the story shifting, just as the dog had sensed it before him. For one suspended heartbeat, the terminal held perfectly still, as if every sound had been swallowed by the cold Montana air. Coda's stance shifted first. His front paws pressed firmly into the tile, head angled toward the stroller, breath sharpening with purpose. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't confusion. It was a certainty that ran deeper than instinct, older than training. Liam recognized it immediately, because this was the same posture Coda took moments before discovering explosives, hidden weapons, or worse. But this time, his intensity carried a different tremor, something unfamiliar, something that tapped against the edge of fear. "Coda, no." Liam's voice was low, lined with an authority sharpened by years of policing. Still, the dog did not blink. Emily took a shaky step back, pulling the stroller closer to her legs. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please. What is wrong with him?" Before Liam could answer, before anyone could move, Coda sprang. He launched upward with explosive force, landing his paws squarely inside the stroller. The sound tore through the terminal. Emily screamed, a raw, piercing sound that cracked through the air like a branch snapping under ice. The toddler inside didn't cry. He didn't even stir. The blanket barely shifted, wrapped too tightly against the cold. Passengers gasped, their reactions rippling outward like waves. A middle-aged woman shouted, "Get that dog off the baby!" A man by the gate fumbled for his phone. Two travelers ducked behind their suitcases, bracing for a possible explosion. Someone yelled for airport security. Someone else muttered about liability insurance. And through all of it, Coda remained perfectly frozen, standing over the stroller like a sentinel. Liam's heart dropped. He moved fast, faster than he had in years, closing the distance. "Emily, don't touch the stroller," he said firmly. "I'm not letting him hurt my son," she cried, reaching in panic. "He's not trying to hurt him," Liam said, catching her wrist, gentle but decisive. "Look at him. Look carefully." She hesitated, chest heaving, tears gathering at her lashes. And in that pause, she finally saw it. Coda wasn't baring his teeth. He wasn't snarling. He was guarding something, protecting either the baby or something beneath him. "Coda," Liam said again, softer this time, like a private conversation between souls who had survived things together. "Let me see." The dog didn't move away, but he lowered his head, nudging the blanket, not with force but with precision, like peeling back the first page of a fragile book. That one gesture silenced the entire terminal. A man whispered, "What the hell?" Emily pressed both hands to her mouth. Liam felt the world tilt. "Coda," he breathed. "Show me." The dog nudged again, and something shifted beneath the blanket. Not a baby's foot. Not a toy. Not an infant bottle. Something rolled. A faint, metallic clink, small, cylindrical, smooth and silver, with a pulsating red light glowing like a heartbeat trapped behind glass. Gasps cascaded across the room. Emily staggered backward. "What? What is that? No, no, that wasn't there. I swear to God it wasn't there." Liam didn't answer, because the truth forming in his mind twisted his stomach. Coda backed up half a step, giving Liam room. The dog's eyes never left the device, not with fear, but with calculation. Protection. The same instinct he'd shown the last time he saved Liam's life. But this was different. This device didn't buzz. It didn't hum. It didn't chirp like a tracking beacon. It breathed. The tiny red light pulsed with a rhythm too organic to be circuitry. Liam felt it before he understood it. Something alive had been in that stroller. The terminal doors hissed open behind him, letting in another cold draft. But no one turned. No one spoke. They stood transfixed, caught in a moment too strange, too fragile, too dangerous for ordinary explanation. Emily sobbed into trembling hands. "I didn't bring anything. I swear I didn't. I would never." Liam raised a hand gently. "Emily, I believe you." And for the first time that morning, she looked at him. Not as an officer, not as a stranger, but as someone who might be able to save her from the nightmare unfolding around her. The silver cylinder sat motionless on the tile floor, its red pulse flickering like a heartbeat trapped beneath metal. For a moment, one long, breathless moment. The entire terminal forgot how to move. The hum of the heaters, the announcements overhead, even the rolling wheels of luggage seemed to fall silent, as though the airport itself recognized the danger before anyone spoke it aloud. Emily staggered backward, trembling, as if someone had reached through her chest and squeezed her heart. That wasn't in the stroller. I swear on my son's life. Her voice cracked, heavy with fear and shock. Liam held up a hand, gently, but his eyes never left the device, not even for a second. "Coda," he whispered. The dog didn't growl. He didn't bare his teeth. Instead, he stood between the device and the stroller, hackles raised slightly, breath steady but deep. It was the posture of a guardian, not attacking, not retreating, just holding the line. A TSA officer rushed forward, skidding on a patch of melted snow. "Everyone back up! Clear the area!" he shouted. Fear moved fast, especially in places built for order. Passengers scrambled backward, clutching children, abandoning suitcases, stumbling over seats. A man muttered, "Is that a bomb?" Another whispered, "Looks like something from a tech startup gone wrong." But Liam didn't answer. He crouched slowly, deliberately, arms steady despite the cold creeping into his bones. He remembered explosive briefings, chemical threat trainings, strange contraptions seized at borders. But this defied every category. No heat, no visible trigger, just that faint, chilling pulse. He glanced at Emily. She wasn't defending herself. She wasn't arguing. She looked like someone whose world had been knocked loose from its foundation in a single blink. Tears streaked her cheeks, not from guilt, but from the terror that whispers, "Your child is in danger, and you didn't see it coming." "Emily," Liam said softly, "I believe you didn't put this here." She pressed both hands to her mouth, sobbing quietly, at the mercy of a fear too big to swallow. Coda shifted closer to the device, nose working the air. Liam tensed. "Easy, buddy. Don't touch it." But Coda didn't touch it. Instead, he inhaled, long, sharp, and something in his posture tightened, something primal, something uneasy. A silent signal Liam had learned to trust more than any protocol. Behind them, a security officer radioed loudly. "Possible hazardous device at Gate C. Repeat, hazardous device. Send the response team." The red pulse brightened, catching the reflection of the overhead lights. Liam narrowed his eyes. "This isn't wired like anything I've seen," he murmured. "What does that mean?" Emily choked out. "It means," Liam answered quietly, "whatever it is, someone wanted it hidden." He reached for a protective glove when the device gave a tiny twitch. A twitch. The sound was almost imperceptible, just a metallic tick, but Coda reacted instantly. A sharp bark ricocheted off the glass walls. Every passenger flinched. Emily gasped. Liam's pulse kicked hard. "It moved," someone whispered, Oh God, it moved! And then, as if responding to the sound around it, the red pulse slowed, then quickened. Liam stood immediately, voice steady but eyes blazing with urgency. Everyone step back, now! The terminal obeyed like a single organism retreating from fire. Chairs clattered. People stumbled. A baby cried near Gate B. Fear spread through the hall like smoke. Coda remained planted, eyes locked onto the device, his breathing perfectly synchronized with its flickering pulse, as though he were reading its rhythm the same way he read danger on the battlefield. Emily reached out weakly. Officer, what is happening to us? Liam didn't know how to tell her the truth he felt deep in his bones. Something alive had been in that stroller, and whatever had been attached to this device was no longer here. He swallowed hard, voice dropping to a rough whisper. We're going to figure this out. But right now, you need to stay behind me. As he said it, the device rolled exactly 1 inch, softly, quietly, like something shifting in its sleep. And fear settled into the room with a weight no winter storm could ever match. The examination room felt colder than the terminal, colder even than the snowy morning outside. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting pale reflections on the polished floors and the stainless steel counter, where the silver cylinder now sat encased inside a clear containment box. A portable UV lamp flickered to life, bathing the stroller in a violet glow that made every stitch and seam appear sharper than before. Emily stood near the wall, arms wrapped tightly around herself. She was trying not to cry again, biting down on the inside of her cheek just to stay steady. But her eyes kept drifting to the stroller, the place where her child should have been safe. Liam could feel her fear from across the room, not the frantic fear of someone who'd done wrong, but the deep, breaking kind that comes with a sudden understanding. The world is no longer the world you thought you knew. Let's take a look, the TSA technician murmured, lowering the UV lamp. The moment the light touched the stroller's inner lining, the room exhaled. Thin, glowing streaks appeared across the fabric, like tiny trails left behind by something that had crawled or slid its way beneath the blanket. Some lines ran straight, others curved sharply. All of them pulsed faintly beneath the ultraviolet light. What is that? Emily whispered. Liam took a slow breath. Residue of some kind. But residue wasn't the right word. The glowing patterns didn't look like something left behind. They looked like something that had been alive enough to move with intention. Liam had seen traces of biological agents before. None of them ever looked like this. These trails were too delicate, too symmetrical in places, too chaotic in others, too intentional. Coda paced slowly around the stroller, nose close to the floor. His paws made no sound, but tension radiated from every movement. Time 700 pemus. When he reached one of the glowing streaks, he stopped, lowered his head, and inhaled so deeply his chest expanded like a bellows. A rumble formed in his throat. Not a growl, something heavier, something like dread. Coda? Liam crouched beside him. Coda didn't blink. His eyes followed the glowing trails as though reading a map only he could understand. The dog stepped back, posture tight, tail low but unmoving. Not fear, warning. The technician frowned, scanning. "It's not chemical," he said. "No explosive signatures, no radiological threats, nothing I can identify." "That doesn't make me feel better," Liam murmured. Emily leaned forward slightly. "My baby was lying right there." Her voice trembled, brittle as thin ice. If something was in that stroller with him, if something touched him. "It's too early to jump to conclusions," Liam said gently, though the weight in his voice betrayed his own concern. "We'll figure this out step by step." Her eyes brimmed. "But how could something get in there? I didn't stop anywhere. I didn't—" Tears spilled before she could finish. Coda moved toward her, surprising everyone. He didn't bark. He didn't nudge. He simply stood beside her leg, offering his presence the way only a dog can. Quiet, grounding, wordless comfort. Emily exhaled a broken breath. Her shoulders eased, just an inch. The technician lifted the UV lamp. "There's something else here," he said suddenly. A thin seam on the underside of the stroller glowed faintly. This wasn't part of the original design. Liam's eyes narrowed. "A compartment? Looks like one." He slid a tool beneath the seam, and a small panel popped loose. Inside lay a shallow cavity, no bigger than a deck of cards, etched with more glowing trails. Empty. "It was hiding in here," Liam said softly. Emily's knees nearly buckled. Coda stepped, closer to the cavity, inhaled, then jerked his head back sharply. His ears flattened. Fear flickered in his eyes. Coda was telling them something. Whatever had been in that compartment was alive enough to leave on its own. Emily let out a quiet, devastated sound. "God, what did they put near my baby?" Liam didn't answer. Something cold crawled up his spine, the same feeling he'd gotten years ago when a mission had gone horribly wrong. The sense that they were already behind, that something had slipped through their fingers, that time was no longer on their side. Coda suddenly turned, nose toward the door, muscles tight as wire. The dog had found the next trail. The hallway outside the examination room buzzed with low voices and scattered footsteps, but Coda paid none of it any mind. The dog moved with purpose, a purpose sharper than instinct alone, pulling the leash with a steady, urgent force. Liam followed quickly, boots ringing against the floor, the cold draft of the service wing brushing against his face like the breath of something unseen. "Hold on, Coda," Liam murmured, though he wasn't truly trying to slow him. He trusted the dog more than any instrument in the airport. If Coda said the danger had moved, then it had moved. Emily stood in the doorway behind them, arms wrapped tightly around herself, eyes red from tears. She watched them leave, the dog leading, Liam following, and she felt the thin thread of hope tugging between them. Her son was safe now, held by paramedics, but the fear in her chest hadn't eased. It had grown heavier. because whatever had shared that stroller with her baby was still somewhere inside this building. Coda reached the dimly lit service corridor, an area passengers rarely noticed. It smelled of metal polish and recycled air. The fluorescent lights flickered, humming with that tired buzz old buildings tend to carry. Liam paused at the threshold. He felt something shift inside the corridor, not physically, but atmospherically, as though the space had been disturbed moments ago. Coda's nails clicked softly as he crossed into the hallway, nose to the ground, following a pattern only he could sense. Liam lifted the portable UV lamp, and the familiar glowing streaks appeared again. Thin, irregular, scattered across the linoleum like footprints from a creature too small to leave a mark in normal light. Some streaks curved toward the right wall. Others vanished beneath the shadow of a large ventilation grate. Liam crouched, fingertips hovering but not touching. Whatever was in that compartment, it came through here. The TSA technician swallowed. Something alive? Liam didn't answer. Coda did, by growling low. The vibration rolled through the stillness like a warning bell. It wasn't hostility. It was fear. And fear from a dog like Coda, trained, loyal, steady, felt like watching a mountain bend beneath its own weight. That grate's been moved, the technician said. Sure enough, the screws were loose, slightly, but enough to signal tampering. Enough to tighten the knot behind Liam's ribs. He tugged lightly at the grate. It shifted. Not much, but enough. A faint metallic sound whispered from inside, barely a tick, like something brushing the ductwork. The kind of sound humans might not notice. But Coda froze instantly, head lifting, eyes narrowing into the dark vents. Liam leaned closer, breath held. There it is again. A soft scrape, then silence, so complete it pressed against their ears. Liam turned back to Emily, who stood at the end of the hall, clutching herself as though bracing against the truth. Emily, he said gently, this thing, whatever it is, it didn't stay in the stroller long. Her face crumpled. Was it near my baby? She whispered. Was it touching him? Liam wanted to offer certainty, logic, safety, but all he had was honesty. We don't know yet, he said softly. But Coda's reaction tells me it wasn't there by accident. She exhaled shakily, tears gathering again. My God, Coda barked, a single sharp sound that snapped every head toward the vent. The dog lunged forward, sniffing aggressively around the grate's edge. He's found the next trail, Liam said. The technician nodded nervously. We should call maintenance, get thermal imaging, maybe even... No, Liam interrupted softly. We move now. Something in his tone silenced every argument. Liam wasn't guessing. He was remembering. Another day, another emergency, another life slipping through cracks because people hesitated. He wouldn't repeat that mistake. Not with Coda ready. Not with Emily watching him with fragile, desperate trust. Coda pawed once at the grate, just enough to say, time is running out. Liam reached for the radio clipped to his vest. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hartley. We've got movement in the service ventilation ducts. We're proceeding down the corridor. Alert teams to secure surrounding exits." His voice stayed steady, but in his chest, a heaviness settled. Because deep down, beneath all the training and discipline, he felt it. Whatever slipped through that vent wasn't done moving. The security footage room was dim, lit only by the bluish glow of surveillance monitors stacked along the wall. Liam stood with his hands on the back of a metal chair, leaning forward as the technician rewound the parking lot footage. Snow fell in soft, grainy flakes across the screen, blurring cars, concrete pillars, and edges of the morning. But danger still had a shape. It always did. "Here," the technician said, pausing the footage. Emily appeared, pushing the stroller across the cracked pavement, her breath forming little clouds in the cold air. She looked tired, but focused, glancing toward the terminal doors every few steps. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. But then, a figure stepped into frame. A man. Heavy coat. Hood up. Head angled away from the cameras. The kind of posture people use when they want attention to slide off them like rain. Emily gasped behind him. She had insisted she hadn't stopped anywhere, that no one had come near her. But memory is kind when trauma fogs the edges. Video is not. The man drifted closer, not directly, but in angled, testing steps, like a predator measuring boundaries. As Emily reached her trunk to pull out the stroller, he paused behind a pillar. The technician zoomed in. Grain sharpened. The man stepped forward, far too close. Emily pressed a hand over her mouth. "Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't even see him." Liam watched silently as the man bent, one gloved hand brushing the side of the stroller. Barely a second. But long enough. Long enough to plant something. Long enough to hide something in a concealed compartment. Long enough to turn a mother's routine morning into a nightmare carved in metal and glowing trails. The man slipped back behind another vehicle, vanishing into snowy shadows as though the world simply swallowed him. Emily's voice broke. "How could I have missed that? How could I not see?" "It's not your fault," Liam said softly. "You were focused on your child. That's what good mothers do." She shook her head, tears falling freely. "He used me. He used my baby." Liam turned, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. Not pity. Solidarity. He knew what it felt like to be used by forces you never saw coming. He knew the guilt of being drawn into someone else's plan. And maybe that's why his voice softened in a way few had ever heard. "You're not to blame," he said. "The man who did this planned it. He knew you wouldn't notice." Coda, lying near Liam's feet, let out a sharp sniff. The dog's eyes snapped to the monitor as the technician rewound in slow motion. When the stranger touched the stroller, something dropped from his sleeve. A scrap of dark fabric. "Can you pull that? Zoom in?" Liam asked. I'll try. The image sharpened. Not much, but enough. The fabric wasn't part of Emily's stroller. It was uniform grade, reinforced, tactical, and the faint stitched logo. Liam exhaled sharply. He knew that brand. Private security companies used it, some legitimate, others less so. Coda rose suddenly, tail stiff, eyes locked. The dog moved toward a plastic evidence bag on the counter, the jacket found earlier near the loading dock. He shoved his nose against the seam, inhaled deeply, and let out a low, warning rumble. Emily stiffened. That jacket belonged to him? Liam nodded. Coda's confirming the scent. The man didn't just hide something. He left a trail. The technician spoke up again. There were 2 more men with him earlier in the lot. Different angles. They met briefly, then split. A chill crept down Liam's spine. Not from cold, but from truth. This wasn't random. This wasn't one man. This was coordinated. Emily whispered, voice small and cracking. How far does this go? Liam looked at the screens, at the touch on the stroller, at the jacket in evidence, at the glowing trails Coda had followed through the corridor. Farther than we want it to, he said. Behind them, Coda barked sharply, once, as if to agree, as if to say the real chase had only just begun. The automatic doors of the concourse opened with a soft hiss, letting in a gust of cold air that curled along the polished floor. Liam had barely stepped out of the security office when Coda stiffened, his gaze snapping toward the row of vending machines near the waiting area. A ripple of instinct, sharp, immediate, ran through the dog's body like a jolt of electricity. Liam followed his line of sight. 2 men stood there. Not passengers. Not lost travelers. Men who watched more than they moved. Eyes flicking toward the stroller guarded now by 2 TSA officers. Their shoulders were tense, angled inward, as though whispered threats had shaped their morning instead of coffee. One of them lifted his chin the moment he saw Liam. The smallest tilt, barely an acknowledgement, but enough to tell Liam they recognized him. Enough to show they weren't afraid. Emily, standing just behind the officers, shrank instinctively, pulling the diaper bag closer to her chest. She knew, without anyone telling her, that these men were connected to the shadow in the parking lot. These were the people who had threaded fear into her morning without her even realizing it. Coda gave a low, vibrating growl. The taller man, dark jacket, gloves still on despite the warmth indoors, stepped closer. We're looking for a woman with a stroller, he said, voice smooth but cold. We heard she needed help. The phrasing struck Liam like a blade pressed flat against his spine. Help. A word that becomes a warning in the wrong mouth. This area is restricted, Liam said. You'll need to come with me. The shorter man smirked. We're already where we need to be. Emily's breath hitched, and without waiting for any command, Coda surged forward, a bark exploding through the terminal with such force that several passengers ducked. The sound wasn't aggression. It was precision, the calculated strike of a dog trained to speak only when it mattered. The taller man flinched, but only slightly. His gloved hand twitched toward his coat. "Don't," Liam warned, hand hovering near his sidearm. "Whatever you're reaching for, keep it there." A tense silence spread, thick, suffocating. People stopped walking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the airport announcements felt muted, as though the building itself sensed violence simmering beneath the surface. The shorter man's eyes flicked to the stroller. "We're retrieving something that belongs to us." Liam stepped forward, positioning himself squarely between them and Emily. "Nothing in that stroller belongs to you." For the first time, the taller man smiled. Not friendly, not human in the ways that mattered. A smile of someone willing to burn a building down just to hide the ashes. "You think you know what you're protecting," he said softly. "But you don't." Before Liam could respond, the shorter man bolted, fast, cutting toward the service exit. Coda lunged immediately, pulling Liam into motion. The taller man swung a hand toward his pocket, but another officer tackled him before the action could ignite something worse. The chase ignited instantly, like dry brush catching flame. The runner darted past kiosks, slipping between startled travelers, knocking over a sign advertising life insurance quotes. It clattered across the floor as he sprinted on. Coda's paws clicked rapidly, gaining ground with every stride. Liam's boots pounded behind him, breath steadying, adrenaline sharpening every sense. The man shoved aside a maintenance cart, sending tools scattering. A wrench clattered, echoing down the hallway like a warning bell. But Coda never faltered. He sped up, muscles streamlined, eyes locked on the suspect. "Stop!" Liam shouted. The man didn't look back. He hit a corner too fast, slipping on melted snow tracked in from the loading dock. That was all Coda needed. The dog leapt, muscles coiling, precision honed by years of service. He collided with the man's legs, bringing him crashing to the floor. A grunt, a curse, then silence, except for Coda's low, controlled hold. Liam reached them, pressing the man's arm back, securing him. The suspect laughed, rough, breathless. "You think catching me matters?" "What was in the stroller?" Liam demanded. "What did you put near that baby?" The man turned his head, eyes dark with something disturbingly close to pride. "You really don't understand," he whispered. His smile was a razor blade. "You think there was only one." Liam felt the words sink deep, cold as Montana wind. And for the first time, he wondered whether the glowing trails and the silver device were just the beginning of something much bigger. Something that had already started moving long before Coda ever stepped into that airport. The mobile analysis lab sat parked beside the service wing, its metal frame humming softly as technicians worked inside. Liam stepped through the sliding door, with Coda at his side. The warmth inside contrasting the winter chill that clung stubbornly to his jacket. Emily followed slowly, arms crossed tightly, not for warmth, but for the fragile sense of safety she was desperate to hold on to. The silver container, now sealed in a reinforced isolation chamber, rested on the central examination table. Its internal red pulse had stabilized, no longer flickering erratically, but glowing in a slow, steady rhythm that reminded Liam uncomfortably of a heartbeat. A biologist from the State Research Division adjusted her glasses as she examined the readings. "This isn't like anything I've seen," she murmured. "Not chemical, not explosive. It's engineered." Emily's brow tightened. Engineered for what? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she brought up a 3D scan of the device. Tiny lattices, microscopic channels, and a hollow core filled the screen. Structures too intricate for smuggling, too delicate for contraband. "It's a containment pod," the biologist said finally, "designed to transport a living sample." Emily gasped. A sound so soft, yet so full of terror, that Liam felt it like a knife twisting beneath his ribs. "A living—" She couldn't finish. Coda circled the exam table, ears forward, nose twitching. He wasn't agitated. He was focused, tracking something faint but unmistakable. Liam recognized the look. He had seen it once before, when Coda detected a hidden survivor beneath the wreckage of a collapsed cabin. It was the look of a dog sensing life. "Whatever was in here," the biologist continued, "it escaped or was removed." Emily pressed a trembling hand to her heart. "And it was next to my baby." The weight of her words felt too heavy for the small room. Liam stepped closer, lowering his tone. "We're going to make sure he's safe. I promise." She nodded weakly, clinging to the words even if she couldn't quite believe them. The biologist pulled up spectral readings. "The residue found in the stroller matches the organic markers inside the pod. The organism adapted to its environment as soon as the capsule opened." "Adapted?" Liam repeated. "How fast are we talking?" The woman hesitated. "Within seconds." A cold silence followed. Emily swallowed hard. "Why use a stroller? Why use us?" The question hung in the air, one Liam had been asking himself since the moment this nightmare began. Before the biologist could answer, the lab door swung open. An officer entered, file in hand, breath short as though he'd sprinted across the tarmac. "We ran financial tracking, border logs, and shipment ties connected to the men you detained. There's more." He spread photos across the counter, invoices, lab facility maps, coded shipment routes. Liam recognized some symbols from federal briefings on illegal biotech markets, underground networks dealing in experimental organisms worth millions. "These men," the officer said, tapping a photo, "were hired couriers, but not for drugs, not weapons." He pointed to the isolation pod. "For this. Their orders say the organism had to arrive undetected, alive." Emily's knees buckled. Liam steadied her gently. Coda barked once, sharp, urgent. His head whipped toward the back of the lab where the ventilation grid hummed quietly. The dog's body tightened, tail stiff, breath quickening. The biologist paled. He's picking up a trace. A trace of what? Emily whispered. But Liam already knew. The organism hadn't vanished. It had moved. And Coda, unfailing, loyal, unafraid, was sensing it again. "Seal the vents," Liam ordered. "Now." Technicians scrambled. Tools clattered. Machinery hummed louder. Emily pressed her palms together, eyes brimming with dread. "Officer Hartley, what do they want with my child?" Liam looked at the isolation pod, then at the glowing trails on the monitor. "Not your child," he said quietly. "Your stroller, your rote, your innocence made you invisible." Emily closed her eyes as silent tears fell. Coda barked again, louder, sharper. Whatever they were chasing, it was still inside the airport, and it was on the move. The corridor leading down to the ventilation hub felt colder than the rest of the airport, as if the air itself had learned fear. Liam walked quickly, boots striking metal grates beneath him, while Coda moved ahead with a tension that bordered on urgency. Every few steps, the dog paused, nose pressed to the floor, drawing in a faint signature only he seemed able to detect. Technicians followed behind, thermal scanners glowing in the dim light. Blotches of blue and yellow pulsed across the screens, warm pockets of air drifting through the vents. But threading between them, a thin streak of pulsing orange moved with unsettling speed. "There," a technician whispered. "It's heading toward the east duct." Liam leaned closer to the display. "How big is that reading?" "Small," the man answered. "Tiny, but fast. Faster than anything that should be in there." Coda barked once, sharp, decisive, then darted forward. Liam followed, heart pounding, not from exertion, but from the growing certainty that they were chasing something designed never to be caught. The ducts hummed with warm airflow. Every echo, every shift of metal felt like a whisper from something lurking just out of sight. They rounded a corner. The thermal reading spiked. "It's right beneath us," a technician breathed, angling the scanner downward. Emily stood near the back of the group, clutching the blanket her son had been wrapped in earlier. She shouldn't have been there. Liam had told her to stay with security. But fear has a way of dragging people toward the truth, even when that truth can break them. "Is it dangerous?" she asked softly. Liam didn't answer immediately. He crouched near an access vent, pressing his fingertips against the warm metal. "If it wasn't dangerous," he said quietly, "no one would have hidden it in your stroller." Emily swallowed hard. "It touched him, didn't it?" Coda let out a low sound, not a bark, not a growl, but a warning wrapped in sorrow. A technician stiffened. "The reading just split." Liam turned sharply. "Split." The man held up the scanner. What had been a single streak of orange now flickered into two smaller signals, pulsing in erratic, unpredictable patterns. "It's dividing," he whispered, "or shedding heat. I don't even know anymore." The corridor seemed to shrink around them. Coda jerked toward the far end of the hall, claws scraping metal, staring at a maintenance hatch. Liam stepped forward. The hatch door was slightly ajar, no more than half an inch. but enough for warm air to push through in steady breaths. He knelt, raised his flashlight, and shined it inside. The beam caught darkness, then movement. A small glint, a ripple, silver and liquid-like, sliding along the duct wall before disappearing upward. Emily gasped. "What was that?" Liam stood slowly. Something engineered to adapt, to hide, maybe even to seek. Coda growled, stepping closer to the duct, bracing himself as if expecting the creature to burst out at any second. Liam placed a steady hand on the dog's shoulders. "We need to cut off the airflow," he said. "Seal the ducts before it gets further into the system." The technician nodded, radioing command. A deep mechanical hum vibrated through the walls as dampers slammed shut across the airport. But Coda did not relax. He lifted his head, listening to something none of them could hear, then stared down the long corridor with a focus that made Emily's breath hitch. "It's moving again," Liam whispered. "And it's not running away," the technician added. "It's circling." The realization settled over them like fresh snow. Whatever they were chasing was now hunting its way back toward them. The ventilation hub loomed at the end of the narrow passageway, a towering mass of steel ducts and humming compressors. The air tasted warm, metallic, as if something living had exhaled through the walls. Liam moved forward cautiously, flashlight sweeping across the machinery. Coda stayed just ahead, shoulders taut, tail low, every step measured. The dog wasn't tracking anymore. He was anticipating. A technician lifted his thermal scanner. The screen pulsed with a blotch of heat just beyond the main intake fan. "It's right behind there," he whispered, his voice trembling despite the effort to steady it. Emily stood several feet back, hands gripping the handrail as if anchoring herself to something steady. Her breath came in shallow, uneven pulls. "Is it going to come out?" she asked. Liam didn't answer immediately. He crouched beside Coda, hand hovered just above the dog's back, not touching, but close enough to feel the tremor of readiness in Coda's muscles. Whatever was in those ducts had learned the rhythm of the building. It had learned heat, airflow, movement. And now, it was learning them. The metal above them groaned softly. A subtle vibration. A shift. Liam tilted his head upward just as a sliver of silver glimmered through a vent seam. Too quick to fully see, but enough to turn his stomach cold. The thermal reading pulsed again, then split into multiple smaller signals, flickering like fireflies trapped behind metal. "That's not possible," the technician breathed. "It's multiplying its signatures, or confusing them. It's intelligent." Coda barked, sharp, violent, a warning that sliced through the air. Emily flinched, her hand pressed against her chest. "Please, please tell me my baby's going to be all right." Liam turned toward her, tension still in his jaw, but gentleness in his eyes. "Emily, your son is fine. Whatever this is, he wasn't the target. You were just the carrier they needed." Tears welled in her eyes. Why me? Because innocence doesn't draw attention, Liam said quietly. And that makes it valuable. The words hung there, heavy, cruel, until a loud metallic crack shattered the silence. A panel above them bowed outward, then again, and again. Something inside was pushing against the vent. It's trying to escape, the technician whispered. Coda lunged forward instantly, planting himself beneath the bulging panel. Coda, no! Liam grabbed his vest, but the dog didn't retreat. His growl deepened, teeth bared, not to attack, but to warn the thing inside the metal that it had chosen the wrong exit. The panel snapped open with a sharp clang. A silver streak dropped downward, fluid, alive, shimmering like quicksilver. It scrambled back into shadow before the flashlight beam could catch it. But in that split second, Liam saw enough to know it was small, flexible, designed. The technician stumbled back. What kind of lab makes something like that? Liam didn't respond. He couldn't. His mind was racing with possibilities he wished he didn't recognize. Black market biotech, engineered organisms, living tools built for purposes no one should ever consider. Is it coming toward us? Emily whispered. Coda growled again, stepping toward the darkest corner of the hub. Liam followed his gaze. It's not running, he whispered. And it's not fleeing, the technician added. It's circling. The realization settled like fresh snow across the narrow corridor. Whatever they were chasing was now hunting its way back toward them. The lights flickered. The compressors hummed erratically. Something was about to break. Coda barked, shattering the tension like glass. Liam tightened his grip on the dog's harness. Everyone step back, now. The creature shifted, closer this time, closer than any of them realized. And in that suspended heartbeat, somewhere between fear and action, Liam understood. This wasn't an escape. It was a confrontation. The emergency doors leading to the exterior maintenance deck burst open with a metallic groan, letting in a rush of frigid Montana wind sharp enough to sting the skin. Snow whipped across the concrete in thin spirals, illuminated by the red flash of warning lights spinning atop the airport roof. Liam stepped out first, hand gripping Coda's harness, feeling the dog's muscles coil like he was bracing for a storm worse than the one above them. Behind them, technicians fought to keep the heavy door from slamming shut. The thermal signature is moving toward the exhaust gate, one shouted over the wind. If it gets outside, it'll disappear into the environment. Disappear. Not escape. Disappear. The word struck a nerve deep in Liam's chest. He'd spent years tracking people who wanted to vanish. But this was something engineered to exploit shadows, metal, and heat. The cold wouldn't slow it. The terrain wouldn't stop it. And Montana's vast emptiness, it would swallow it whole. Coda jerked hard to the left, pulling Liam toward a row of industrial ducts stretched along the platform. Beneath one of them, a faint glow pulsed. Silver, alive, like a bead of living mercury. It's here! Liam shouted. The creature skittered along the metal, moving with unnatural fluidity. Too fast. Too smooth. Shifting direction like it had no bones, no weight. Coda barked. The sound carried away by the wind, but sharp enough to pierce the chaos. Emily stood in the doorway, hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide with horror and helplessness. She couldn't look away from the glinting figure slipping toward the exhaust gate, not after knowing it had shared space with her sleeping child. Snow hammered against the railings. The world smelled of cold steel and fear. Liam sprinted, boots crunching over ice, while Coda charged ahead with unwavering precision. The creature darted along the duct's edge, then dropped, vanishing beneath a grate for a split second before reappearing closer to the gate. "It's almost there," a technician warned. "If it reaches that vent, the draft will carry it out." Liam pushed harder, lungs burning from the cold, each breath thick and painful, but he didn't slow. Coda reached the gate first. The dog planted his paws against the metal frame just as the creature attempted to slip underneath. A flash of silver. A twitch. Then it lunged upward, trying to slip past Coda's grip. The dog snapped, missing by an inch. The creature recoiled, its surface rippling like disturbed water. Liam skidded on one knee beside them. "Coda, hold it!" The dog lunged again, pinning the creature with a forceful strike of his paw. The creature wriggled violently, vibrations shivering up the metal like a struck tuning fork. But the wind, the relentless Montana wind, worked against them. A sudden gust blasted across the platform, lifting snow into a blinding sheet. The creature used the moment, slipping free once more, darting toward the final vent opening. "No, not now," Liam breathed. Coda reacted first. The dog threw his full body weight into the duct frame. The creature recoiled, bouncing back toward Liam. Liam swung the containment pod's reinforced lid like a net. A tiny sound, a soft metallic click, signaled impact. The creature collapsed inward, curling into a trembling silver coil. Liam slammed the container shut. For a moment, all he heard was the wind screaming. Then silence. Emily sobbed from the doorway. Relief and terror tangled in her breath. "Is it over?" Liam held the sealed pod against his chest, feeling the creature thrum faintly inside like a trapped heartbeat. "We caught it," he said, but his voice carried the weight of something unfinished, because catching it didn't answer the question colder than the wind. Why had it been sent here in the first place? Coda pressed his head against Liam's leg, breath shaking, eyes sharp, alert. The dog knew too. This chase was only the first. Liam carried the containment pod close to his chest as he and Coda pushed back through the exterior doors, leaving the storm behind them. The warmth of the corridor hit his face immediately, but it did nothing to thaw the tension running through his body. The pod vibrated faintly, soft, rhythmic tremors that felt too much like something alive adjusting to captivity. Technicians stepped aside as Liam and Coda moved through, their faces pale from what they had just witnessed. Emily hurried toward them, clutching her son's blanket like a lifeline. Her voice trembled. Is it secure? It's contained, Liam answered, lowering the pod onto a reinforced metal table. Yet even as he said it, a knot tightened in his stomach. Contained wasn't the same as safe. Coda stood beside him, chest rising in heavy breaths. Snow clung to the dog's fur, melting into droplets that darkened the floor. Liam knelt, wiping ice from Coda's muzzle. "You did good out there," he whispered. Coda didn't wag his tail. Instead, he leaned into Liam's touch, eyes soft, tired. The dog had risked more than anyone realized, had lunged into a threat no training manual could have prepared him for. Emily approached slowly. "Officer Hartley." Her voice cracked. "Thank you. And your dog. He saved us." "He saved everyone," Liam said softly, glancing at Coda with quiet gratitude. "He always does." A heavy silence settled. Then the pod pulsed again, a faint glow flickering within its silver walls. Emily stepped back. "It's still moving." "That's normal," a technician said shakily. "It's stabilizing." But Liam wasn't convinced. Nothing about this morning had been normal. Nothing about this fear felt stabilizing. He lifted the pod slightly, feeling the subtle thrum inside, a pulse too deliberate to be random. Coda's ears twitched. He pressed closer to Liam, posture tense, alert again. Liam whispered, "Easy, buddy. We've got it handled." But Coda didn't relax. Emily's voice wavered. "He senses something, doesn't he?" Liam nodded. "He always does." Then the pod emitted a sound, a soft click, barely audible. Technicians froze. Emily covered her mouth. Liam turned sharply, eyes narrowing as he leaned closer. Inside, the creature unfurled slightly, pressing a ripple of metallic texture against the transparent barrier. It didn't thrash. It didn't panic. It simply observed, almost as if it recognized the faces around it, as if it remembered the stroller, the warmth of the infant, the scent of innocence it had shared space with. "It's responsive," one technician whispered. "No," another corrected, voice shaking. "It's aware." Coda pushed against Liam's leg, offering silent warning. The dog's gaze was fixed on the creature, unblinking, focused, protective rather than afraid. "Coda," Liam murmured, "what are you seeing?" But Coda didn't look away. He simply stood guard, steady as the mountains outside, protecting his partner and the woman whose life he'd saved. A scientist entered, analysis board in hand. "Officer Hartley, we reviewed serial codes from the container. This wasn't the only sample." Liam's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "The organism you captured. That's model B12. Her voice dropped. "There are others. B10, B11, B13. At least 4 shipments unaccounted for." Emily staggered back, as if struck. "There are more?" The scientist nodded grimly. "Yes. Someone sent multiple units. each designed for transport inside everyday objects, and each one potentially alive. The words weighed down the room, colder than the Montana wind. Coda growled, deep, resonant, vibrating through Liam's chest. Not fear, not anger, warning. Liam placed a hand on the dog's shoulders. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "We're here now." But Coda's gaze stayed locked on the pod, unwavering. And Liam felt the truth settle heavily inside him. This wasn't the end. It was the opening move in something far bigger than any of them expected. The briefing room inside the airport's emergency wing had never held the kind of silence pressing against its walls now. It was usually meant for weather delays, stray wildlife incidents, the occasional snowstorm evacuation. Not this. Not a threat no one had language or training to truly explain. A map of the region glowed on a wall-mounted screen, its cold blues and whites reflecting off the steel table where Liam stood, arms braced, staring down at the serial numbers scientists had recovered. Emily sat quietly in the corner, hands trembling in her lap. She looked smaller than she had earlier, as though each truth revealed that day had taken something from her, something soft, something human. Coda lay at her feet, head resting on his paws, eyes open, always watching. A senior biologist cleared his throat. "Officer Hartley, what you captured was sample B12. Liam nodded. "You said there were others." "Not just others," the biologist replied. "A sequence, 10 through 13, 4 total." Emily's breath shook. 4 creatures like that? Out there? "Not necessarily identical," the biologist said, flipping through encrypted reports. "Each pod was engineered for a specific variant. We don't know their abilities, or their purpose." The room stiffened under the weight of that single word. Purpose. Liam stared at the data. Where were the other pods supposed to go? "We traced the shipping manifest," a technician said. "All 4 were routed through different airports. Bozeman wasn't the final destination. It was just one branch in a larger chain." Emily's voice wavered. "So other families, other children, could be caught in the middle of this?" Her fear wasn't loud. It was quiet, hollow. The kind that lingers long after danger passes, whispering doubts into every corner of a parent's mind. The biologist hesitated. "It's possible. Whoever organized this used everyday travelers as cover. People who wouldn't draw suspicion. People like you." Emily swallowed, eyes filling again. "I should have seen him. That man in the parking lot. I should have—" "No." Liam's voice cut in, gentle but firm. "This wasn't something you could have prevented. You were targeted because you're innocent, because you blend in. Blame belongs to the people who planned this." Coda lifted his head, eyes following Liam's voice as though he understood every word. The dog moved closer to Emily, nudging her knee with quiet reassurance. A technician approached the containment pod resting on the table. "We've stabilized B12 for now, but internal readings show activity spikes, almost like it's reacting to stimuli." Liam frowned. Stimuli? Yes. The technician pointed at a rising graph. It becomes more active when people are near, especially when Officer Hartley or the dog enters the room. Emily shuddered. It recognizes them? Or remembers them, the biologist said quietly. The hair lifted on the back of Liam's neck. He had seen strange things in his years of service, but nothing that looked back at him with something resembling awareness, something almost evaluative. A knock at the door broke the tension. An airport officer entered, thick file in hand. "We interrogated the man Coda caught," he said. "He talked." The room held its breath. "What did he say?" Liam asked. The officer slid the folder across the table. "He claims they didn't create the organisms. They were hired to move them. Courier work." "Who hired them?" Liam pressed. The officer hesitated. "A private biotech group. Name unconfirmed. International connections. Off-the-books shipments." He exhaled slowly. "And according to him, B-12 was the only pod they failed to deliver." A cold realization washed through the room. Emily blinked hard. "Failed? Meaning they already have the others?" The officer nodded. Silence fell, so deep it felt like the room forgot how to breathe. Coda rose slowly, stepping in front of Liam, gaze fixed on the sealed pod, guarding them from what was inside and what was coming next. Liam felt the truth settle into his bones like winter frost. This was no accident, no isolated incident. It was a test run, and they had only stopped 1/4 of whatever had already been set in motion. The airport finally began to exhale sometime near dusk, when the storm softened and the last of the emergency barriers were taken down. The chaos ebbed into a weary silence. Officers packing equipment, technicians escorting the sealed containment pod toward a secured transport vehicle, travelers drifting cautiously back to their gates. But beneath every routine movement lingered a heaviness none of them could shake. Liam stood near the service exit, watching as the transport van's doors closed with a muffled thud. Inside, Model B-12 sat locked within a reinforced crate, strapped to the floor, pulse dimmed, but not forgotten. Liam could still feel it, the imprint of its presence lingering in the air, like a cold fingerprint pressed against his thoughts. Coda sat beside him, close enough that Liam could feel the warmth rising through the winter chill. Snowflakes clung to the dog's ears, melting slowly into his fur. For the first time in hours, Coda's breathing had steadied. No growling, no tension. Just a quiet watchfulness. "You did good today," Liam murmured. "Better than any of us." Coda didn't respond. Not with a bark, not with a wag. He simply leaned into Liam's leg. Soft, gentle, grounding. Behind them, Emily stepped into the fading light, her baby bundled safely in her arms. She looked different now, not lighter, not unburdened, just steadier, as if surviving the unimaginable had carved something stronger inside her. "Officer Hartley," she said softly. Liam turned. Emily's eyes glistened with gratitude no words could quite hold. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "Or your dog." "Coda," Liam corrected gently, with a faint smile. "He takes the credit. I'm just here to keep up with him." Emily let out a shaky laugh. Small, fragile, but real. She held her son closer. "I just keep thinking, if he hadn't jumped into that stroller when he did." Her voice thinned. "I don't want to imagine it." "You don't have to," Liam said. "That's over now." She nodded, though the worry in her eyes betrayed the truth. Some fears don't end when the danger passes. They settle quietly into the corners of a parent's heart. Liam watched her walk toward the lot, snow falling around her like a soft curtain. For a moment, the world felt peaceful, but it didn't last. An agent from the scientific division approached, breath fogging in the cold. "Hartley," he said quietly, "we analyzed the manifest again. The other pods, B10, B11, B13, we have no idea where they ended up." Liam's jaw tightened. "Any leads?" "Some," the agent admitted. "Not enough." Then he added, voice weighted with something that made Liam's stomach drop. "The group behind this, whoever they are, they didn't seem concerned about losing B12. Coda let out a low whine, the sound threading the cold air like a warning carried on winter wind. Liam watched the transport van drive away, taillights fading into the snowfall. "That means," he murmured, "they already have what they wanted." The agent shook his head. "Or," he said quietly, "B12 was never the primary objective." A quiet dread crawled down Liam's spine. When the agent walked away, Liam remained where he stood, staring out at the mountains. The Bridger Range stretched across the horizon, dusted in new snow, glowing faintly under the fading afternoon light. Peaceful, untouched, unchanged. But Coda didn't look toward the van. He looked toward the mountains.